Thanks for joining us today on Cece and Doc Talk, where we talk about everything under the sun. You never know quite what you're going to get, but you'll always be entertained.
Hello, and welcome to Cece and Doc Talk. Today we're going to talk about the mindfuck of body image and weight, the scale, though, because I think there's some things happening these days. So, Cece, I'm going to just toss it.
All right. Well, we don't. These conversations are not always planned. So, and that's why it's uncensored.
I'm sitting here biting my teeth, going, "Oh, where are we going to go with this one?
No,
are we
it's
okay
good
with that?"
It actually is a good one
because we don't like to talk about weight, but everybody has these opinions and judgments around weight and body image,
and self judgments. Huge.
Yeah.
I actually think this is a great topic because it's been a topic of conversation in our household, at least as long as this last year. And so, I think we can go there. So I'll just say for me, there have been times in my life when I have struggled with my weight, and, my weight has gone up and down. You get that. Some people got freshman 15. I think I got freshman 30. And then, lost it and kept it off for a number of years. And then, it came back on again and then lost it and kept it off for 10 years. And then, ended up with some of it back on again. And so, it's just...
And then a lot of people experience the COVID 20 pounds.
Right. And we didn't experience that because we committed to walking 3 to 5 miles a day, every day, during that whole stretch of COVID and beyond, when I should say lockdown and beyond, we are still doing that.
Yes.
We even did it last year during cancer treatment, not quite that far, but
we did get some sort of movement in every day.
We did.
Because movement is.
And so we I actually didn't gain a pound during that stretch. Now I will say my weight was higher during that time, but here's the mindfuck, right?
Right.
I had finally gotten comfortable internally with it didn't matter what the scale said as long as I was healthy and I felt good. That's where I was at before my cancer diagnosis. I was finally at that place, and I stopped getting on the scale maybe a year or two before, somewhere after COVID started. I just said, you know what, it screws with my head too much. It doesn't matter.
You were in physical condition enough that you could do what you wanted to do.
Right.
And
so I said, as long as we're eating healthy, as long as I feel good, as long as I'm fit and we're moving every day and we're active, that's what I'm going to count as, good. And certainly every once in a while when I looked at myself naked in the mirror, there was still that voice in the back of your head that's like, well, you could look a little better than that. Or, that looks better with clothes on. But, I was finally to that mental place where I had made peace with it is not about a number. And then came cancer. And initially after radiation, I dropped 15 pounds within the first month after radiation because I had such severe radiation side effects.
But this is those happen after they told you don't lose weight through this.
Yeah. So even going into cancer, being a little more overweight than your average not overweight person.
Average skinny bitch.
Your average skinny bitch. They definitely said don't gain weight. So next thing you know,
no, don't lose weight.
Don't lose weight. Sorry, they said don't lose weight. Don't lose any weight. In fact, they told me I could eat donuts if I wanted them.
Not every day, they said.
Right. And so immediately after radiation, I lose 15 pounds in the span of a month. And then chemo started, and I did my best to maintain through chemo, but chemo off weeks. Anyway, long story short, then I got my first surgery and my ultra low anterior resection surgery. And I had my ileostomy, and that completely changed how much I could intake at a time. And so then I lost
how you weight.
Yeah. So then I lost another 20 pounds. Well, maybe another 5 came off during chemo. So bottom line is, after all is said and done, I am now almost 40 pounds less than I was a year ago. And it is a complete and total mindfuck. Because now what I want to say is if my body feels like, if my body gains some of this weight back, that's not a bad thing. But then there's that whole thing in the back of my head going, nope, you got to maintain it. Nope, you got to maintain it. Nope, you got to maintain it. Because it's kind of this crazy thing where, and it's funny too, because people look at me now who've known me before, and they're like, you look great. And I, by the way, take that as such a compliment, and I know what they mean by that, and they totally genuinely mean that. But I also know what they're seeing is that, like, there's been this drastic weight loss because of cancer, and they don't want to say, oh my God, you look amazing because you lost 40 pounds, because
or they don't want to say you look amazing for a cancer patient.
Right. Right. Exactly. So, cancer, can be a great diet for some people, but I don't recommend it
ever.
But it's still the whole mental piece of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. And now, my eating has remained different because now I must eat smaller portions. I must
chew the crap out of it.
Yeah, I've got to chew everything so well. And I eat like...
It's very mindful eating.
Right. It is very mindful eating. I eat like 4 to 6 times a day. I liken it to people who've had a gastric bypass. I mean, I can't overfeed this little semicolon or, that wreaks havoc. But again... But what's interesting is I ended up back on the scale every day during cancer treatment because I was trying to follow the advice and not lose weight. So I was paying attention, and now I'm still on the scale every day. And now I don't even know where I'm going with this, except to say, like, it's such a mental struggle, especially I think for those of us who have struggled with their weight in the past. And yet I say that, and the skinny bitch sitting across from me also has some what's the word I'm looking for? Some
issues with the scale.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
We all have a relationship with the scale, love it or hate it or whatever it is, right? We do have a relationship with the scale.
But even you who has always been slender, you have a bit of an unhealthy relationship with the scale too, right?
Well, I do. I do. And then it's just because I've mentioned this over the multiple podcasts here. I mean, I have an eating portion control problem. And so it was, now 23 years ago, I had to get my arms around that and get my mind around that because I had a threshold. And as soon as the scale hit that threshold, and I'll share it. I mean, as soon as I hit like 150 and was in the white 150s, and I saw that, that the trajectory for my family bloodline is to go from being skinny bitches to not skinny. And so I'm just like, you know what? If I want to stay more slender, I have to change now. And so I actually started a bodybuilding program.
The Body for Life program.
Body for Life program.
We're going to give him credit because he's had a hell of a few years.
He
deserves some
Bill
credit
Phillips.
Yep.
Yeah, and he actually had COVID, and he was in ICU and lost 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And so... the Body for Life, Bill Phillips. I did that, started 23 years ago, and that's where I learned to eat completely differently. The smaller meals throughout the day, having a combination of protein and carb, cutting out the sugars, cutting out the salts, and so it, to a lot of people, it still looks like I eat a lot, but I'm very mindful of what I'm eating because I know it then works for my body, and then, stopping halfway through and then eating some of it, a little bit later. With you this past year, I've had to be even more mindful of reducing my portions even more and then chewing longer because, I got to tell you, for the first couple weeks after you had your ileostomy where you couldn't eat larger portions, we'd sit down and we'd have a half a sandwich each. And, in half an apple.
And half an hour later, I'm still eating my sandwich.
And I felt like I was a ravenous dog, and in 2 bites, mine was gone. And you're over there, and you've barely had your first bite. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not good. So just out of pure comparison, right? Out of like a competition, I'm like, oh my gosh, can I even eat my sandwich slower than you're eating your sandwich? And so, I'd pretty much have to find something else to think about or do and leave my sandwich just sitting there. I'd be salivating, but, I was like, all right, don't touch my sandwich. Just trying to eat it slower. And I'm like, oh, take smaller bites. And then at the end of the meal, it's like, hey, I get an Oreo cookie, and I would just pop the whole thing in my mouth, chomp, 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 gone. And I'm like, did I even eat that Oreo cookie?
I know, and I take like 10 minutes eating my Oreo.
I know, you take forever to eat everything these days.
Well,
and so I really...
I kind of don't have a choice, but it's good.
Again,
I like
but
the
it has
healthier
slowed
habit.
both of us down significantly. And what a difference. And I dropped, gosh, well over 10 pounds through your process of eating differently with you. The smaller portions again, which to me now felt minuscule. But the chewing longer, just the mindful eating that we've had to do. And now I've dropped to lower than my high school weight, which I didn't even know was possible.
Until we went on vacation.
And then we went on vacation, and again, all of a sudden I'm like, woo!
Everybody's shoving
all
food
bets
at
are
you
off,
because everybody's used to you eating a lot, so everybody's shoving food at you.
Right. Hey, give this to Amy, she'll eat it. And I did.
Yeah.
When I came back from this vacation, I was 6 pounds up. I mean,
from the lowest weight.
The low.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay. How did that happen?
And yet there's this
I have no question how it happened because I enjoyed every bite of it. But.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing too is like, it almost sounds like, we're celebrating the fact that, I lost 40 pounds and we're celebrating the fact that you were down to your high school weight.
No, but I think we're just completely screwed up by this now. By the way, you look great in my clothes.
Thank you. Yeah, because I used to be able to wear your clothes back in the day. And here's the other thing interestingly about, being with Amy is that because she can eat so much, even if you eat half of what she eats, which doesn't look like as much by comparison, you can still gain weight because eating half of what you eat is still not a normal portion. So you eating now literally half of half has really, and the other thing I will say is,
and I have to, like you even said it tonight, you're like, I'm hungry after every meal. And I can relate to that. I'm like, I'm hungry after meals. And usually what we have to do is drink more water.
Right.
Because that
well,
helps,
and I have ways of managing that because ideally now, I need to eat 4 to 6 meals a day. And, and I include snacks in that. And so, but one of the things that's also interesting is like everybody who knows you to be slender, kind of skinny bitch. And yet your weight can change like 15 pounds and you still look the same. But, I think the other thing too is it's interesting because you're 5'8" and, 150, like to most people, they would go, oh my God, how can you weigh like 145 pounds? How can you weigh 150 pounds and still look like that? And I'm like, well, and this is exactly why it's just a number.
The scale is a mindfuck, right?
Yeah, the scale is a mindfuck because you have a ton of muscle. I have a ton of muscle. And so you can't compare, body to body. Like I used to hate that thing that said, if you're 5'6" and you're 135 pounds, you're overweight.
Obese.
I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm like, because that's crazy. And so,
there should be relative points along the way so people can monitor things. I love that Betty White. Betty White would get on the scale, bless her heart, would get on the scale every day. And if she went up 2 pounds, then that day she would say, okay, what am I going to live without or not going to eat or not going to do today, or what I am going to do, like exercise or walking or whatever. And so she would never let herself vary more than, I think it was like 3 pounds total. And that
actually, I think it was 1 or 2.
1 or 2 pounds. Okay. And I love that. That actually stood out to me. And I give myself a little bit more of a range because. But I really did like that. And it's like, okay, if I start approaching a number that it's like, okay, this isn't good, I'm going to have to buy a whole new wardrobe. Then, I can cut some things out for the next day or the next week or try to, but a lot of people will think that they can get to it someday. But the someday, again, this is that mindfuck, right? Is the someday for me was then today and tomorrow and trying to keep that within a range that I wanted it to be within. But I also have I used to have a super flat stomach and I no longer have that super flat stomach that I used to have.
You're also 50. How old are you?
Well,
how old are you going to be in a couple
week
weeks?
Yeah. Closer to 60 than 50. So.
Right. So, I'm not saying that you can't have an awesome body and be your age. You have an awesome body and you're your age. And I don't think anybody expects you to have a super flat stomach
but I
at
think
57.
so now I hit my all-time low, and I'm like, oh, I still got a little belly here. I'm like, oh, what is this little friend that I've attached to myself? Okay?
Oreos.
Yeah, thanks for that one. Anyway, I don't know where else we're going with this.
And
but
I have to admit, I have to say, like, I really was bothered by that Betty White philosophy. And it's interesting because I know you really liked it. I saw it as a little too obsessive. Like, and we read that book at the time when I was not paying attention to the scale and trying to be of the mindset that as long as I feel good, as long as I, all the things I mentioned earlier, I thought that was excessive, kind of obsessive in that, oh God, I gained a pound. That to me was like not healthy behavior. Might have been for Betty, but like knowing how you can get a little wiggy about that. I was like,
obsessed
no,
with things.
I don't think that's such a good thing. And, and even now, as I'm getting on the scale every day, I'm seeing how that can really mess with your head. The other piece of this that I think is really important to mention, everybody talks about body shaming. I want to talk about food shaming, because especially after going through this cancer journey, people, let me just preface this with, people are well-meaning and they say things to be helpful, and they say things in order because they don't know what else to say sometimes. But, genuinely, people say things to you in trying to be helpful. And everything that was said to me during my cancer journey, I tried to take very much like when somebody said, you look great, I took that as a compliment. When somebody said, you're very inspiring, I took that as a compliment. When somebody gave me food advice or cancer treatment advice, I said, thank you for that. And I took all those things into consideration. But honestly, folks, we've got to stop food shaming people because, and I'll just give an example. Many people believe that sugar causes cancer. Well, I'm here to tell you that because my father died with comorbidities of diabetes and heart disease, that, Amy and I cut out a lot of salt and sugar like a long time ago, like almost completely. And for almost 20 years, we've been eating, we've been focusing on not having a lot of sugar, whatever. So,
and salt.
And I got cancer anyway. So I'm here to tell you that every body is different, and we have got to stop food shaming people.
And then now when you are going through treatment and they tell you not to lose weight and you went to have one treat or something to get some food in you that would stay down, such as a Pop-Tart, and you might post that online, people are like, hey, if you have cancer, you shouldn't be eating that. And you're like, give me a break. You know what? It's
like,
the
if a
only thing
Pop-Tart
I've
tastes
had
good,
the entire day.
Right.
This one little Pop-Tart is not going to kill me. Oh, when's it going to give me cancer? I'm already got chemo in me for that. So, I think that's what you're trying to say.
Well, it is, but
these unsolicited opinions and advice of things that,
but not just for people with cancer. I mean,
right.
In general, like we've labeled carbs bad, we've labeled fats bad, we've labeled
carrots are good, then
meat
they're bad.
We've labeled grains bad. We've labeled, and I can say you and I are very much kind of an everything in moderation type of approach. We always have been, and yet, post-cancer treatment, I actually have a little more sugar now than I used to, because some things have shifted in my body and in my taste buds and whatever, but I still I'm not excessive about it. Like we talked about, I have one Oreo, after dinner.
It takes you 20 tiny little niblets to eat it.
Or I still have a Pop-Tart here or there, or I was never an ice cream person, and during chemo I couldn't have ice cream because I had this cold sensitivity, but now occasionally I like a little, and I have like the tiniest little, ramekin of ice cream. My point is, we have to stop food shaming, and we have to stop like pointing fingers at people and going, oh, that's so bad for you. I'm the first person to say that I am being very conscious, and we are being very mindful of what we eat and how we eat it.
Eat a rainbow a day.
Post cancer. And my current focus is really fiber, because that's so important for me right now in rebuilding my microbiome and my gut health. And I am a person who loves red meat. It doesn't mean that I was excessive about eating it before. Red meat alone didn't cause my rectal cancer. I'm just saying, will I eat it less now? Possibly. But the point is that good, positive body image is so much more than a number on a scale. And whether you had a steak and a glass of wine and an Oreo cookie for dinner. And
I hope you enjoyed every bite. That would be the thing. Enjoy every bite of it. And the body image being a state of mind.
Yeah. And so your final thoughts on this, because we readily admit that we've been in this situation. And then honestly, there's a part of me that's like, well, cancer gave me this jump start of losing weight. And then I think to myself, I'm like, I thought you were okay with the weight you were at. I'm like, well, I was, but it's kind of nice to be 37 pounds lower just because it kind of gives me a new starting point. But then I'm like, but if I gain 5 pounds or even 10 pounds in the next year or two, as my body recovers, can I process that in a positive way?
I don't know.
As long as I know that I'm not doing anything unhealthy to cause it.
Yeah.
It's so...
the interesting thing is, I don't know that we can let go of the mindfuck. I don't know that we can. It's too ingrained in our culture, and it's too ingrained in us. And there are health
and it's not just a woman thing, right? It's a man thing too.
It really
is. It happens to women and to men.
And I think what it comes down to is just loving yourself for who you are.
That's it.
The other piece of that, I would say, is the one piece that we implement, and I wish everybody would, is just the movement. Get some sort of movement every day. And even if it's just 20 minutes, or get out for a walk or something, dance, put some music on and just wiggle. But, do something for 20 minutes every day.
You have a story about that.
Our doctor one time, because the Body for Life is a 20-minute workout every day.
We at some point stopped doing Body for Life for a variety of reasons. But
she said, continue to do your 20 minutes a day. And she said, and it doesn't matter whether it's kayaking or walking or, whatever, jumping jacks or whatever the case may be. And one day you may ask yourself, what do you feel like doing today? And your body might tell you, I don't feel like doing anything. And you go, okay. So on that day, you don't do anything. But on the next day, when you go, what do you feel like doing today? Should we do some aerobics or walking or, swimming or whatever you have available to you? And your body goes, I don't feel like doing anything today. Then you tell your body, think again. Because today we're going to do something.
Right.
So you really only give it on occasion that opportunity to go, no, today we're not going to do something. And so you and I have agreed, and sometimes it's created a little rifts in trying to figure out our schedule in the day. And, all of a sudden the sun's going down, we got to get a walk in, and dinner's not done, and whatever else.
It took us 20 years. It took us
a long time to figure out how to get.
It took us COVID to figure it out.
And we still don't have a routine. We don't have the same time of day. We're not morning people, night people. We're like, are we going to get this in today? It's getting windy out, it's cold out. But the commitment to the movement every day.
And we commit now to at least an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, because one of the coolest, most fun things we're doing right now is something called Body Groove. Misty Tripoli created this. It's dancing. It's literally just dancing. And it's not like Zumba or one of those
free form type dancing.
It's not like one of those aerobics classes where you have to do everything right. It's not a HIIT class where everything's super high intensity. It's literally dancing to the coolest, most fun music. And as she says, like wiggling your tatas and moving your butt and
get your arms to move like a snake. And the more they look, the weirder they are, and the shapes, the better. So she encourages you to just be weird and odd and awkward and
it's so much fun that we actually love doing it. It doesn't feel like exercise, and then we of course do the pool. But I agree with you. Like that's the thing. It's just committing to some kind of movement. And I will give you a compliment because I think you're finally at a place where everything you do doesn't have to be high intensity. Like in the last few years, and
thank you.
Because it used to be like,
if it was a mellow workout, it didn't count as a workout.
Exactly.
I had to be sweating,
And that also, that also made it challenging for me to work out with you because everything had to be high intensity, and not just for you, but then for me also. And I'm like, dude, I just want to enjoy this. Like, I don't like, cause I hated exercise for the sake of exercise, but I like being active and I like moving. And so I really sometimes sort of bristled at the idea of like, it didn't have to be high intensity for me all the time. So I love that you're now at a place where you're like, you know, like if we decide high intensity is what we need, a little more, you know, vim and vigor in a day, then we do that. But every time doesn't have to be that way. Like, you've mellowed so much. Thank you. It's so much easier
It's really
now to work out with you.
Thanks.
There was something else. There was one final comment I was going to make, and I totally
Was it back with
lost
the
it.
just love yourself?
Yes, that was it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So your advice is just move every day, just move for a little bit, whether it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or, you know, whatever. And for me, it truly, that was such a like aha moment when you said that. I'm like, oh my God, that's it. It really is about self-love and self-compassion and doing your best every day and just being kind to yourself and giving yourself that grace and saying, okay, here's where I'm at today. And I learned this last year because there were days when I could barely float in the pool, let alone swim. And
It would take you a half hour to go from one end of the pool to the other, and it's only 12 feet long.
And we considered that to
25
be,
feet long, I don't
and
know
we
what it is.
considered that to be an accomplishment. And so now I have this perspective that, you know, that was a good day for that day. If the next day I could actually swim, then that was a good day for that day. And so it really is. So we have got to get out of this mindset of constantly guilting and shaming ourselves, constantly guilting and shaming others. We just have to really be who we were meant to be and love ourselves. That's just such great.
I just want to let you know, the last few days, I have just floated like a manatee in the pool because I haven't felt like swimming because I'm tired these days. I mean, all of a sudden I've hit my walls, but,
Yeah.
But you know,
And when you hit a wall,
but I still got in the pool and moved around.
Yeah.
But I didn't move around like I did on some of the other days.
and that's okay.
And that's okay. But I mean, there's so many options available for movement.
Yeah. Find something that you love, or
Standing up
5 things that you love, whether it's
Yeah.
Tai Chi or Qigong or body groove or swimming or walking or
Yoga
just,
or push-ups or sit-ups or just walking.
or just put on music you like and dance
wiggle.
with yourself. Yep. Just wiggle and enjoy whatever you do for yourself and for your body. And it really just isn't about a number.
I think that sounds wonderful. What a great place to end. Thank you, Cece.
Thanks for tuning in to Cece and Doc Talk. We'd love for you to follow us on social media at Cece and Doc. That's CCNDOC. And you can visit our website at ccandoc.com. We also take monthly donations to support this broadcast if you're so inclined. We'd love to hear your comments, suggestions, and questions, and we'll do our best to respond. Thanks, and have a fantabulous day.